All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Control+M Presents. After a bit of a break, we're back. Like you, we took the holidays off, and we've also been helping about 6 different companies come live on Plex since the first of the year. So we're super glad to be able to come back to doing these for you, and we appreciate you being here. We are recording these sessions, and as a reminder, once the sessions are recorded, we put them out on our YouTube channel every week. So if you can't make one, you can always watch it online. And if you do watch it online, please take a minute or two to give us a thumbs up. We do love the kudos. So today, Justyna in our Canadian office is going to talk tooling. Justyna joined us in 2020. She's had a number of years using Plex, and she'll be sharing some of her knowledge with Plex Tooling with you. So without further ado, take it away, Justyna.
Well, thank you, Patty, and hello, everyone. Welcome to Control+M Presents Tooling. As Patty mentioned already, this session today is being recorded and is going to be added to our YouTube channel, hopefully later this afternoon. On our agenda today, we are going to cover some basic tool setup, usage, maintenance, and transactions. Before I go to the first topic, I just wanted to let you know that today's presentation will be done in Classic with UX in mind, meaning anything that is much different in UX, I will show you both. Before we head over to the actual setup in Plex, it is important that we go over some prerequisites. In this slide, I show some basic definitions and terminologies of Plex. To be quite honest, just don't tell Veronica, I did actually steal this picture from her. So, tool assemblies. Tool assemblies are links between tools, tool sets, and production. They define which tools are required to run at a part operation. Think of that as your drawing. Tool sets. Tool set is simply a predetermined list of actual tools taken from inventory that can be moved, loaded, or maintained. And finally, tools. Tools are individual tools or components that are required to run production. Good old settings and setup tables. These are just some of the many to consider prior to starting. There's a lot more, but this is all that's needed for the basic setup that we will be going over today. It is important to note that this bottom setting right down here is actually required to be turned on by Plex, so keep that in mind. And lastly, here's the process flow that I'll follow in my setup demonstration today. We'll set up a tool assembly, define its tools.
Well, yeah, so like,
create a tool set and briefly touch on how you can take it just a bit step further without actually doing it, and then sign the components. All right, so without any further ado, let's just get right into Plex and go over these. So first, we, as mentioned in my presentation, first in my assembly setup, we're going to set up the tool assembly. So let's go back to Plex. Again, this is where you would set up the link of the part number, the operation, and the tools. So for my demonstration today, the tool set that I'm going to be setting up is the gingerbread cookie kit, just because I think everybody can pretty much relate to that. So I'll just go ahead and click add my assembly number. This is what you would call your assembly. It makes sense to kind of keep the naming convention similar to the part number. So it makes sense when you're searching. So if you have a part number that's called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you may want to call the tool assembly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that way they're easier to find. So in my case, I am going to do gingerbread cookie kit. Type, I'm going to use other. Again, this is one of the many setup tables that can be configured to your liking. We have die machining. I'm just going to use other. Brief description. Really, I'm just going to name it the same. That is completely up to you, what you would like to do there. And then the part number and operation field, you see this little green plus sign. So this is where we're going to link the part number and operation that we will require to run the gingerbread cookie kit. So if I click here, it just says, do you want to continue? And add. So here's the part. So here's what I'm going to tell Plex. What part am I going to use that tool assembly on? So I am going to use it on part cookie. And it'll show all the operations that are from your process routings that are associated. So I'm going to use 10 for assemble. Obviously, I need to do the cookie cutting before I bake it. So I'm going to assemble, add, back, and here's the setup. Here's our tool assembly gingerbread cookie kit. Here's our part. And let's go back. And right here, I'm just going to touch on this briefly. So the stroke to part ratio, this will come in handy later on down the line in my presentation. Essentially what it does is you put the ratio from the strokes to the part. So let's say on a die, on a press, per stroke, maybe you produce 2 parts. So then you would do 1 stroke, but you would do 2 parts. So then when you're setting up your PMs and stuff, this is going to be considered. For my presentation today, I'm just going to leave it 1 for 1. Update. And this is it. We have officially set up our tool assembly of gingerbread cookie kit that is associated with the part number cookie at the operation assemble. So if I go back to my presentation, we have officially set up the theoretical assembly, and we linked the part and the op. As you saw, it was the cookie and the assemble. So now, sorry about that. Not sure what happened here. Let me go back.
Thank you, Helen, very much.
Sorry about that. There we go. Let's try this again. There we go. Okay. So we've officially done the tool assembly. So now we're going to go back into Plex and we'll set up the tool set. Yeah. So going back into Plex, you have 2 options from this point. You can either attach the tool set right here, or you can navigate to the tool set inventory screen. Since we're here, might as well just go through here. So I just click on the tool set. Go ahead and click add. The part number is cookie. Notice because I went straight from the tool assembly, it just pulled everything. It pulled my assembly number right in. And if you note right here, you have the set number is gingerbread cookie kit 001. Essentially what Plex does is it takes the name and then adds a sequential number to the end of it. And it's basically if you have, if you have multiple physical representations of this cookie kit, you may want to have, gingerbread cookie kit 001, cookie kit 002, 003, and then you can keep track of their usage and so forth that way. Location, I'm going to default the location. Again, you don't have to. And owned by, that is, let's say, a customer. These tools are customer provided. You could link the customer right here. And so in our case, I'm just going to leave it as us. So that right there is basically, that's it. You can start using this tool, start producing with it, getting the life going and everything. However, before I go on to the control panel and show you the producing against it and stuff, the one thing that I wanted to touch on is this column right here. We're not going to go into the detail. This is going a little bit an extra step. But what this essentially right here would do is, if you have set up, let's say, for this gingerbread cookie kit, you want cookie cutters that are for the roof or maybe the sides of the house, or because you're building a gingerbread house. And you want to track each one of those cookie cutters and the life of them and the production against them. You could set those up as individual tools, and this is where you would go in and attach them. So they too would be serialized. You could have them serialized, you don't have to. And then you would attach them here, and then essentially anytime you ran the gingerbread cookie kit, the life against those would also get used. So let's say, maybe the house, you need a PM done every 1,000 pieces, but the sides you need it every 500. So you could track it that way. However, for today, we're keeping it very basic tooling 101 kind of thing. So we will not go into that detail, but that is something, if you want to go that route, that is where you would do it. You would essentially go right there and add them in and link them. Okay, back to my presentation. All right. So in this slide, you can see the control panel. I've got two screens here. The top is a screenshot from Classic. The bottom is from UX. And if you note, one of them is red and the other one is green. Yes, I did that on intentionally. The reason for that is Plex can be configured to make tooling a requirement at the control panel or not. So it's kind of like a check sheet. When it's a requirement, they go red, the operator needs them. So tooling will go red, they can't run the job, they'll need to load them before they can run. Again, that's a setting. There's some configuration that needs to, the setting that needs to be turned on, and then you can use it, or don't, and they'll just stay green. So if I go to the control panel, so I'll show you how that works. I go to the control panel. Okay, so naturally, before this presentation, I already created a job for 1095 for cookie. I'm already loaded. Nothing's different here in terms of setting up your jobs and doing all that. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to log into my work center. I'm going right into production. And I'm going to go ahead and produce. Oh, however, I can't because the correct tooling is not present. Production cannot be recorded. So this, again, is that setting that I just mentioned. So as an operator, I then have to go back and go into tooling and load the tool. So notice how it's also red here. You can either load it here or scan it here. So I'm going to load it, and then it's going to go green. Perfect. Tool successfully loaded. So now I should be good to go ahead and record my production. Everything's good. I'm going to start the container. My job's for 10 pieces. Update. Yeah, nothing different here other than loading the tool for the operator. So, it's great, kind of minimum involvement, yet you are keeping track of Plex is keeping track of the tool, and the tool obviously couldn't load the job without the proper tool and so forth. So a fairly simple and familiar process for the operator. All right, so some usage in Plex. When you've linked your assemblies to your parts, which we did, the usage of the tool set is shown in multiple areas. You can see here you've got picture 1 for production and picture 2 for the PMs. So in the first picture, you can see that the production we just made on the tool set, which is right there. So here's our, if you remember, our assembly, our tool set kit, and then 10 pieces that we ran against it. And then in our PM picture, in our PM screen, the second picture right here, the maintenance frequency in this particular example, again, because it's keeping the life and the parts produced against it, we had a PM on another part, that the frequency of the PM was every 1 piece. We actually ran 199 pieces, so it's telling you you're like severely behind. So this would be, so going back to my example of the gingerbread house and the components, this would be very valuable when you are using and tracking those components within the tool set. You can track, as I said, the usage of each one of those cookie cutters and replace them when needed versus just tracking the entire tool set. Again, that is totally based on your wants of configuration and setup. All right, so tool maintenance. Tool maintenance is an essential part of maintaining your tools throughout their life, be it through random repair orders or scheduled PMs. In my demo, which we will go into Plex shortly, I will show you how an operator can actually request an unscheduled repair right from the control panel. Then we'll have a look at the screen where the supervisor can set up PMs and schedule repairs. And finally, we'll look at essentially where maintenance is going to spend most of their time in Plex and the screen that they're going to be interacting to see what's out there for them to, that requires their work and basically to do their work and complete it. As far as the tool set log, essentially the log tracks every activity done with the tool. So I'm hoping that once this presentation's done, by the time we do everything we've already created, the tool, we ran some production against it, we'll do some maintenance. There should be enough data in the tool set log for me to go in and actually show you what that would look like as well with a little bit of data in there. So if I go back to the control panel in Plex, I'll show you, this is, let's say, you're running production, you're making the cookies and something happens and the operator, it breaks and the operator needs to request it to be fixed. So essentially I'm already in the screen, but I'll just back out. So if they go into their tooling and just click on the request maintenance, they get this request maintenance screen. And in here, automatically, because that's what they're running, so the gingerbread cookie kit gets loaded. Event, I have just random events set up. However, again, this is another setup table that you can configure. Brief description. Let's see. Sure. Cutter snapped in half. You may assign it to somebody or just leave it open. If it's, anybody can work on it. Then a detailed description. Dropped it, stepped on it, and needs inspected. Sure. And these are the tasks that I have set up that are associated They only really need to inspect. Because obviously the operator might not know whether or not welding is needed or anything like that. So they're just going to say inspect and go ahead and add it. So here it is. Now you can see that there's an unscheduled repair for these cookie kits. And this is what we had literally just set up. And that is how the operator would interact. Now, this at this point can be addressed in two different ways. One, you can close the job, take the tool to maintenance and work on it whenever. Or let's say that this is something that needs to be fixed right away and you need to get right back into production. With proper config, again, this is something that proper configuration needs to be done in the background. You can actually have maintenance comes to fixes it right away. They can actually change and complete the request right here at the control panel. So really the only time you would use this is if it's something that needs to be fixed right away. You need to get right back into production. You can't waste any more time, no more downtime. They can go in here and do whatever they need to do and fill it in, complete it. So if I go in here, say okay, completed, work performed. I only inspected it. Obviously, there was nothing really wrong with it. Inspected, good to go. And I will go ahead and complete it. And notice it went back to green, so you can continue running it. I guess that was one thing I forgot to mention was how it went red when we did the request. And then it changed to green now that the request is completed. Okay, so since we're in here, let's I will show you the supervisor screen. So based on this topic, I guess it's the tool maintenance schedule. So this is kind of, I call it the supervisor screen. You may not. This is where essentially, a supervisor can view what's going on, what's out there. They can set up the PMs. They can put in other requests. They can see what's going on. So there's obviously many filters. You want to filter by set, by events. All of these that's obviously a setup table. See if there's any requests out there. Yep, there seems to be a request out there that I had done earlier, just to kind of show you. So there is a request out there already for batter set. Then let's see if there's any PMs. Yep, so we've got a couple of PMs out there as well. And then of course there's both. So while in here, let's add a request. I'm a supervisor and I want to add a request for the gingerbread. Oops, how do I spell it right? I want an extra inspection. Let's say that inspection that happened at the control panel, I didn't like it. I want a little bit more. So I'm going to set up another request in here. The description, I have it as text, but you can actually configure it to have a drop down. So let's say you always have the same more or less descriptions, you can do that. So let's just do another section. And again, this is just a regular, so I'm not going to do any other PM stuff. And I just want them to inspect. So I just want you to double check and add. And there it is. So the supervisor just added another inspection. Now, since we're in here again as well, why don't we set up a PM? Again, this is the screen you would use. So we're going to go and again, do gingerbread cookie kit. This time, the event's going to be my PM. Description, I will say PM. For PMs, you actually do not want the due date because we're going to be using the frequency calculations and stuff. So you don't want the due date in there, otherwise that won't work. And then I'm going to say it's a PM. Let's say I want the PM done every 100 pieces. Then you can choose, do you want the calculation to be done based on unload or load? I'm going to say based on unload. And because it's a PM, I want all of it. And I will go ahead and click add, and there's our PM. One of the things to note is when doing a PM, when the PM comes up to being done, once it's completed, another one is going to start up again. However, let's say you keep going and you produce, 200, 300, you're not going to have 3 PMs out there. You only have this one, and then once this one's completed, another one's going to open up. So essentially, they're only going to, one has to be completed for another one to open. They won't just keep popping up because they're due. Okay, so that's pretty much the supervisor screen. Now let's have a look at the maintenance. So that's the tool maintenance priority screen. So these two screens are you may have noticed, they are very similar in terms of what is, what's available and what's out there. It's just the other one is where you set things up, whereas this one you actually work on things. So this is where the maintenance associates would come in here and see, okay, what's out there, what's due for me to do. So if they do look at due only, they're going to see these two that are unscheduled that we just did, a gingerbread cookie kit, and then there was one I did before. And then there's a scheduled maintenance, which is the PM, that was also out there that we created that was actually due at 70, but we ran 271 pieces now. So they went into red, and that also needs to be done. So, but if I take the due only off, it'll also show me the other two PMs that we've set up. Notice how they're not due because we took out the due date. Therefore, they're not due, and they're not. Plex hasn't recognized them for actually being due because we have the frequency at 100, but we've only ran 10. There's still 90 left over, so it is not due. So let's go back to here. And then, of course, same filters. You can do by requests versus by just PMs. Most common is just to leave it at both, so then you can really see what's going on and stuff. So even though the screens do look similar, the information's there. You can click into the status in the other screen, just like you can click into the status here and the requested status here. The important thing is the PM has to be completed here. Otherwise, the next one will not start. So if you do it in the other one, because remember the other one is more of a setup screen, this will, it won't start the next sequence of PMs. Okay, so based on that, I think we should have enough data. Actually, you know what? Why don't we go in here and complete this one, this particular PM. I'm just wanting to make sure that we have enough in the tool logs for you to have a look at. So actual hours, if you want to change the actual hours on the of the tool. So sure, let's change that to 150. Welding. Okay, and I should be able to complete it. Okay, so if we go into the toolset log, and let's have a look. What do we have here today? Okay, perfect. So looking at all this, we can see that there was maintenance started on here. We have PM completed. So it was started at 11:30. It was completed at 11:31. At 11:12, we added a gingerbread cookie kit That's what we had actually added. Looks like a random event at the control panel happened at 11:22. There was another maintenance that was completed. So it says the problem was cutter snapped in half, but maintenance said it inspected, it was good to go. Well, we had a move of a cookie kit. So this is a great tool to keep, really the history of it, to see what is going on, what's happened with these tools, and so forth. And that, my dears, is it. That is the basic tooling demo. Obviously, there's a lot more to tooling. This is a great start. Ultimately, it's up to you how far you want to take tooling. So at this point, I guess, any questions, comments, concerns?
Thanks, Justyna. Just want to remind everybody that you are muted. So if you have questions, you want to make sure you hit yourself off of mute. Mike, I see the question that you have, what settings do I need to require tooling for production? Mike, since you're a customer of ours, why don't you and I connect up? Maybe at the end of the day, I am in Wisconsin at a go live. I can give you a call tonight after work and tell you exactly what settings in your system you need to deploy.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anytime.
I have a question about tooling inventory. Does Plex allow me to do like inventory, like to store the tools and where they are located?
Yes, it does. We didn't touch on that today. That is a lot more detailed, but yes, definitely. And if you'd like, you've got my email there. Feel free to give me shoot me an email and we can chat.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's good.
for sure. Yep.
Any other questions for Justyna?
Yeah, I have a question about preventing production from being recorded when a PM comes due. I think there was a situation where we were 271 parts past the PM frequency. It was in red, but we were still able to record production. How does that work? What's the link there, and how can we explicitly prevent production recording, I guess, to enforce the PM to be done?
So we actually, that little, the PM, it can be on the part, on the tool life, which I'm not sure if I actually touched on that. There is a field that is more or less for their knowledge, but yes, there is a way to make the PM mandatory and therefore prevent you from running production.
Because let's say, for example, we have a bin of 600 parts, for example, and our PM frequency is at 300, and we're not going to record production for that 600 piece quantity until I have a full bin of 600, meaning that I would have a PM frequency come due in the middle of that production run. So I go to I go to log the production after the PM was supposed to be done, and it didn't get done in the middle of the run like it was supposed to. So I'm limited to only recording 300 out of 600 pieces. That and the PM that was supposed to get done didn't get done.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
That's the missing link here that I struggle with.
Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying. I'm not, I'd have to look into that, to be honest. Can you shoot me an email? And let me, I know what you're saying. I totally understand what you're saying.
The other aspect of that is linking Plex with my work center, right? So that it's aware of live updates in terms of production quantities. For example, when I log in to start a run of 600 pieces, that as those pieces are individually being produced, say 1 a minute or whatever, that Plex is aware of that, so that when I come to the 300 mark, it hits that and then says, okay, machine stop. You need to do PM maintenance on the tool.
Yeah, the The thing is Plex is going to take that. It's going to take that quantity once that quantity hits Plex. So unless you're actually, recording every piece, which I'm sure you're not, you're
Correct.
probably recording. Yeah. It's not going to be until that container is completed. So if you want to do it one piece at a time, I don't.
No, I don't want to do that. I mean, I'd like my equipment to give that feedback to Plex so that it's aware of that. I guess that's the missing link. That might be a higher level question.
Yeah, that might have to be like. So is the equipment kind of like is the equipment linked to like a PLC to send this information at all? Like, that equipment?
Yeah.
It is, eh?
Yeah.
I'm just
The
thinking.
specific
with
application I'm
PLC
talking about is spot welding, right? We've got a semi-automatic spot welder. It's got a PLC and per piece production, and I want to drive a replacement of electrodes, for example, after maybe 50 hits.
I know that there is an external software that does the communication between PLC and Plex.
Okay.
And they can keep track of individual pieces that you make, but we'd have to. Plex ultimately will only record when the container's full.
Right.
So the software that's kind of in between that does the communicating back and forth, depending on if the data sources are available, perhaps, again, I can't say for them, but perhaps they can send something back to Plex when that count is there, send a data source back to Plex saying, hey, maybe put the work center on hold set or on idle, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think what you're asking, I don't think is necessarily possible with what Plex, because it's looking at the container full. But with that application in between that does the data source pulling back and forth and communicating between Plex and PLC, perhaps they could, because they keep track, they are able to keep track one part at a time.
Right. It's a matter of getting the information to Plex for it to analyze it, right?
Exactly. So perhaps they could then send something and say, hey, maybe put the work center on idle status or on PM status once you reach that certain, number. So the PLC is pretty smart and it can send that information one part at a time.
Right. And we've got an integration source that's got the PLC side of things covered. I guess this third-party software you're talking about, that's a communication mechanism between data sources. Is that a standard between PLC, between Plex software, or is there multiple softwares that can achieve that, or is there a target software that you guys would recommend?
Yeah, it's actually a Plex partner that does do that, and I know we've worked with them before.
Okay.
Course. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Course.
So if you want, we can get together and talk with them. We can get you online with Tony and his gang and see if they'll be able to help you out with this. It seems to me like you're probably not the first guy that thought of this.
No, definitely not. I don't imagine so, but we're in the automotive industry, so these PMs and these frequencies are very critical. So they would actually, if you want, I can give you a lot more info on. We can chat with Tony as well. Like Patty said, thank you, Patty. I actually didn't know about Plex taking that, so that's awesome.
Brand new news.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And essentially what Course does is they specialize in doing the communication between your PLC and Plex. It's based on data sources. They pull the data. Now they might not be able to do everything, but they can find other areas to utilize. So maybe they won't be able to, stop the work center or something, but they might be able to send some sort of other data source to send some sort of information to Plex, for sure.
I would love some information on that.
Well, give us a call and we'll connect you up with the folks from Course.
Yeah, I will do that.
For sure.
I'll send an email.
For sure.
Great.
For sure.
Great. Any other questions from the team?
I have another question. Is Plex able to do PMs only on consumables, or is it capable of doing PMs also and tracking PMs on the workstation itself?
Do you mean like the regular preventative maintenance module where I've got a piece of equipment and every month I need to change the oil on it,
Correct.
and every year I need to replace the head?
Yes.
Yep, that's absolutely available in Plex. It is the Plex preventative maintenance module. Jill, if you're still on the line, can you look at our list of videos on YouTube and see if anyone's done maintenance? I thought Danielle did it, but if not, we will certainly put on a session on maintenance. And it seems like, Justyna, if we ask the group that you would want to have, people would probably want you to do an advanced tooling session too.
I think so. If anybody, unless anybody says no.
I would love to have the more advanced tooling, because we are getting into the process of organizing the shop. And like I said before, inventory, tracking where things are, like, for example, if I need a collet, like an ER collet, do we have that collet in-house? And if we do, where is that collet? What location? What cabinet? What drawer is that tool located?
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
I don't know if I'm wondering if Plex has that capability.
Yeah, it does go. It can go into a lot more, definitely. Like you can even go into the manufacturing of tools and such. There's just so much more that can be done.
If you want to go there, please give us a call, because we've been recently rolling on a new configuration with our customers where we build tools as parts, because a number of our customers are using the same equipment that they use to make parts. They're using that same work center and that same inventory to make parts as tooling. So they may have a work center that makes, I don't know, washers. It's stamping out washers, but then it's going to also stamp out a piece of tooling that we need, or it's more prevalent in a CNC environment. So they'll run a CNC stuff. Then we convert it from a part to a tool, and then we can start using with the tooling system. Plex also has a very robust tooling manufacturing module as well. But if you get the same operators, same inventory, and same work centers making parts as tools, it becomes easier for everyone involved to use the Plex part manufacturing module. So there's lots of decisions to be made when it comes to that. It looks drastically different than the parts manufacturer, especially in Classic. In UX, obviously, there's a more universal front end, but it's definitely something that we'd love to talk to you about. We can tell you what we've seen work and not work. So maybe Justyna, advanced tooling, where we get into the tool details, would be a good session. And another good session might be tool manufacturing. I just want to warn everybody that when you are using the tooling system, you can get so granular that it becomes overhead intensive and difficult to manage. So the planning is extremely critical. You don't want to build a system that's so difficult to keep moving that your operators buckle under the weight from it.
Yes, I would love to have another session with advanced tooling.
Well, great, Justyna. You know what you're doing next.
Yay!
Is this the advanced tooling module?
The module is the same. It's how you choose to use it. Whether you use to choose the tool detail, or there's basically an easy button and there's a not easy button. It just depends what you need. It also depends on what your costing methodology is. We always want to take that into consideration. Jillian just put up a link to what I presume is a preventative maintenance session. So everyone click on the chat button if you're interested in seeing what we've got to share on our YouTube channel about maintenance. Go ahead and click out there. And Justyna, I know that we are running a little bit short on time here. This has been a great session. If you wouldn't mind, go ahead and click to the next screen. Everybody, if you've got additional questions, please go ahead and email Justyna directly, and we'll be sure to help you out as much as we can. if you do take a few minutes to click on that preventative maintenance session and see what it's like, please give us a little bit of a, a little thumbs up if you get a chance. Our next session is going to be 2 weeks from today. I'm going to be going over a little nugget that a lot of people have never seen before. It's been around since about 2009. It's called the calendar-enabled job dispatch. And when it originally was announced in 2008, it was called Finite Light. I'm going to show you how it works. What it basically does is allow you to look at when your jobs are probably going to be done based on your standard process routing, the percent that's been completed, and the sequence that they're in. We're going to show you creative ways to use that, why some of the features in there might work or not work for you. So we're going to talk about what you should and shouldn't do, the settings and actions and permissions that control it. So they are different between UX and Classic. So I will be going through both of those versions, UX and Classic, and how to turn it on, because it's not a paid for module. It's free. You all already have it. So it's a pretty cool little inexpensive module. So thank you everybody for joining us today. We appreciate your time. Again, a reminder, go out to our YouTube channel. We've got many videos out there. We're more than happy to share what we know with you to make the whole community stronger. So once again, thanks, Justyna. Thanks everyone for joining us, and I will see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.